I'm going to show you two different ways to reorder a list in SwiftUI. One that was introduced in iOS 16, so it's relatively new and it's a lot cleaner and simpler. And the other is the onMove modifier, which has been around for a while. And we'll talk about the pros and cons of each method. Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. Here we are in Xcode in my starter project. Now, if you're super familiar with lists already, go ahead and skip forward. I have it timestamped below. But for those that want the context, I'm going to explain this starter project in about like 60 seconds. So we're talking about reordering a list. So I do have a list. It is in a navigation stack. And you can see the cell for my list over on the right is a colorful square with an episode title and a description. So that's what we got here. Rounded rectangle in a square and a V stack for the title and description. Again, super basic stuff. What is an episode, right? Our list is an array of episode, and this is going to come into play for our reordering because we want to persist this list order. What I'm going to show you, sure, it'll reorder your array, but if you're building an app, you're going to want that order to persist most likely, right? If you're reordering a to-do list or reordering an episode queue, you're going to want that order to save. So we have a property on our episode called list order, and I made it a class so it can be mutable. And how you persist it is really up to you in your app. Maybe you send it up in a network call and all your stuff lives on a server. Maybe you're using core data or Swift data and you're persisting it locally or in iCloud or user defaults. There's many different ways you could persist this. So I'm going to show you that, hey, we are going to have a list order. How you persist it is kind of up to you. And then down here is just mock data where I create 8 episodes, as you see over there on the right, with different colors and different list orders. Okay, starter project review over. Let's start reordering. So new in iOS 16, there's a new initializer on list, and I'm going to type it out so you can see it. So list, and as you can see, there's a ton of initializers on list. It can be confusing, but I'm going to go down all the way to the one that says data, edit actions in row content. Now, one thing that's different about this kind of list, as you see here, is it is a binding to a collection. And that's because the list is going to actually reorder the array as you're reordering the list in the UI. So that's the one we want. And then so a binding, we just need the $ episodes. And then edit actions, we can do all, delete, and move. So if you do all, this does encapsulate swipe to delete, but we're not gonna touch that right now. We're worried about move. So go ahead and select move, and then row content can be episode. So if you're comparing these two signatures, right, list, episodes, edit, actions, move, all we did differently from a normal list was have $ episodes because we need a binding to this episodes array up here. And then we added the edit actions parameter with .move because we want to reorder. So I'm going to delete this signature so we can use our new one. Now you're going to notice one small thing. This episode also has a binding. So for episode.color, I need to do .wrapped value to actually get the color in there because this is a binding still. So now with just that, if I run the app, I should be able to move my cells around. So let's take the pink cell, move it down here, I don't know, down here. Cool, it moved. But like I said before in the starter project explanation, so if you skip that, this will be new to you, you're probably gonna wanna persist this order, right? If I close the app, restart it again, the pink episode is gonna be back on the top. Well, again, you're probably going to persist the order if you're moving it around. Maybe you're moving a to-do list around or a queue of episodes that you want to watch next. So we need to do some logic to persist this. And again, how you persist it, whether you're sending it to the server, whether you're using iCloud or Swift data, core data, just the order into user defaults. There's many different ways to do it. But I'm going to show you how to get that order, and then you can save it however you like. But new in iOS 16, this is clean, right? You see, all we did was added the binding to the episodes, edit actions. We had to adjust to the wrap value, but that's it. So that's nice and clean. But we want to update the order when our array changes, when this changes, because our list is changing it as we move it. That was built in. What we can do is have an onChange modifier. We'll do it down here below the navigation title, .onChange of episodes, right? So anytime our episodes array up here changes, we're going to do something. So down here, hit return. We have old value and new value. So we're going to get the old value of the episodes array and the new value. So I'm getting an error. Okay, so my episode needs to be equatable, however you say it. So we'll get some conformance to equatable down here, and then I'm going to need a stub here because Xcode and Swift needs to know, and I like putting this down at the bottom. Xcode needs to know, like, how do I know these are equal? So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, if these IDs are equal, go ahead and say these items are equal, and now you conform to equatable. LHS.ID equals RHS.ID. And LHS and RHS stands for left-hand side and right-hand side when Swift is going through and comparing the two. There's the episode on the left, episode on the right. It'll compare it, and it'll say, hey, if the IDs are the same, cool, this is the same one, it is equal. That is how you conform to equatable. Okay, scrolling back up to the top, we should be good to go on the onChange. So now what I want to do is update my list order, right? Because as I move stuff, right, I moved the pink episode down to the 5th row. So it went from index 0 to index 4, right, 0 indexed. So we need to adjust all the indices so we can save that order. So the next time we launch the app, the order is the new order in which we move stuff around to. So for that, we're going to iterate through the new array and update all the list orders. And then here's where we're going to talk about the pros and cons of these approaches. So if you're already thinking like, I don't know about that, stick with me. We'll talk about when you should use this and when you shouldn't. So what I can do is var counter equals 0, and I can say for episode in new value, because remember, new value is the value of this episode when it changes, right? Anytime this changes, this fires off and it gives me the old value and the new value. So for the new value, this is after the move, after the reorder. I want to go through all those and basically say episode.listorder equals counter, and then counter plus equals 1. So what this is doing is for the new array, so let's say I move the pink episode down to item 4, well now teal should be 0. So what this for loop is going to do is it will iterate through the entire thing. The first one it's going to counter is the teal one because that's now 0, and it will set list order equal to counter, which will be 0. So now that puts it in first position. Then we'll increment the counter to 1, and it'll go through the rest of the list to give me the proper order. Now if that didn't make sense, let me print it out so you can see it in action. Print episode.title, comma, list order equals episode.list order. Again, this is after we've already set the new one. And then after the for loop, I'll do a print dash dash dash, just so we know we've done it, right? Okay, so now when I run it, we're going to see this print out the new list orders of the reordered list. So again, pink is in index 0. It's the first one. Let's move it down towards the bottom. So teal should be index 0 and pink should be index, what, like 5 now? 4 or 5? Okay, let's scroll up here. Now you see teal episode, list order 0. Pink, list order 4. So you can see it reorganized it, and then we went through and updated all the list orders. So now we have this, so if we need to persist this, whether we're saving it to Swift data, core data, or sending this up to the server, we have the proper list order that can be persisted. And of course, you can do any other logic you need to do in here after the reorder. Again, you have the old value of the array, you have the new value of the array, so you have all the information you need to see the difference between the two to do any calculations or anything you like. All right, let's talk about the downsides of this approach and then a possible alternative with the onMove modifier. So this onChange fires off anytime this episode's array changes. Now, if all you're ever doing to this array is reordering it, this is perfectly fine. But let's say you are building a to-do app and your user can add a ton of items to the end of the list. Well, if you're adding items to the end of the list a lot, you don't need to reorder the entire thing, right? You just append the new item with the next logical list order, right? If there's 10 items in the list, create the new item, list order is 11, good to go. So you don't need to update every single index. And again, that would fire off, right? If you're adding an episode to this array, that will fire off the onChange. It's going to reorder everything. So it's repeated work. Not a big deal if you only have 20, 30 episodes, whatever. If you have 300, 3,000, it's kind of a big deal now. Especially if you're talking about sending this up to the server or making saves to Swift data, you want to be careful with that. So again, if all you're doing is reordering, I think this is the way to go. If you're doing a lot of other stuff to the array, again, appending a bunch of items to it or who knows whatever, then you probably want to do the onMove because that is more precise because it only fires off when you're reordering, not adding items to it or not doing any other array manipulation you may be doing. So again, if all you're doing is reordering, this is nice and clean, built in, I like it. But let's go to the example where you want to be more precise. You only want to do this reordering onMove. All right, let's minimize our console here. For onMove, we don't need this binding because the list itself isn't actually manipulating this array. We're doing it in the onMove. So I'm going to get rid of this $sign. I'm going to get rid of edit actions to move. Again, this is back to the basic list with just the data and the item. And then I'm going to get rid of this wrap value because I no longer need that because it's not a binding anymore. Now I don't need the onChange. I am just going to comment it out though. So we're back to our regular list before I did any of the binding stuff or any of the onMove. So to get reordering, we need to switch to a for each in the list. So in here we can do for each data and content, and that is episodes, and the content would be episode. So essentially we're taking this signature here on list, moving it down to a for each. So I can delete those bottom curly braces and then just do list with an open curly brace. I'm sure many of you have written lists like this before. We just do list and then a for each. And then I will highlight this, do a Control-I to get my indentation correct. Okay, so now we put the onMove modifier on the for each, and my navigation title indentation is messed up there. But okay, so on the for each, we can do .onMove, and you see we get a perform that has an index set and an int. So hit return there, we get index set, and we'll say destination. This is where we're moving to. And I can use trailing closure syntax to get rid of the argument label there. Now the code I want to use is a special .move function on a collection. So episodes, or an array, we'll just call it to put it simply. We'll say episodes.move, and you can see move from offsets to offset. And it's an index set and an int. Kind of similar to what we just saw, right? So I'm gonna hit return. So this index set should be a lowercase I, not uppercase. But I want to just pass this through essentially. So index set to offset destination. And kind of just, again, passing this through. So this code does basically what we did before when we had the binding to the list and the edit actions. It kind of bundles this all in. But again, with the exception, if you want to monitor for changes, you're going to get all the changes to the array. If you only want to do something on move when you reorder, this is more precise. And then of course you could do this print statement and update the indices here. So I'm gonna uncomment that, and then we will go ahead and cut our logic there, paste it into the onMove, just to prove to you that this is doing the same thing. And I'm actually gonna delete the onChange there. And actually it's not new value, it would be episodes. And I think I have a curly brace messed up somewhere. Let's highlight the whole thing, Control I, probably missing a curly brace somewhere. Yeah, down here at the end. Copying and pasting things around in SwiftUI, that'll always get you. So let me recap what's going on here. We switched to the list with a for each. Again, that's a common pattern. I'm sure you've probably done that. We attached an onMove modifier to the for each. And the onMove gives us an index set and a destination. So basically this is all the indices in the array, and then we move things to the destination. We have a built-in method on an array that will just handle this for us. And here's the for loop where we're setting the new list order. And then again, you would save or persist it however you're doing it, whether it's network, Swift data, whatever. But if I run it again, we should see the same exact printout. Again, we're accomplishing the same thing. The difference with onMove is that it's more precise and that it only happens when you're reordering the array, not anytime the array changes. Okay, so let's try something different. Let's move Indigo up to first position. So I should see Indigo episode, list order 0, pink, list order 1, right? You see the new order it reordered. So there you go. That is how you reorder a list in SwiftUI. Again, iOS 16 and above, if all you're doing is reordering the array, you're not doing all kinds of other stuff, I recommend this new method here with the binding to the episodes array and the edit actions. That's much cleaner, and then you just monitor things in the onChange, in my opinion. But if you want to be more precise, use the onMove modifier. This is also available prior to iOS 16, so if you have an older app, this is what you gotta use. But it is more precise, and in my opinion, not as clean, but we're really splitting hairs. It's not like it's super messy. So there you go, now you can reorder a list. And if you're here learning this kind of stuff, I know you're building amazing apps, and I highly recommend having an iOS dev portfolio website to showcase your awesome work. And that brings me to today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to help you get that iOS developer portfolio up and running very quickly. Now I know we're developers, we can build a website ourselves, but we're also iOS developers, and I would argue there's an opportunity cost of your time. Now, do you want to spend your time learning about web development, responsive design, all the different browsers, or do you want to spend your time building apps? So that's why I always recommend letting Squarespace take that off your plate to build your iOS developer portfolio. They have all kinds of beautiful themes and templates to get you started, and you can use their next generation website editor with the Fluid engine to just really unlock all the creativity in the world. You can even use Squarespace Blueprint and Squarespace AI to help you figure out what to write on your website, because that's always the hardest part. Like, I don't even know what to say here. Throw it into Squarespace's AI and they'll help you out. They handle all the SEO and analytics for you. Again, Squarespace handling your website just takes so much off your plate. So when you're ready to get started, go to squarespace.com. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/SeanAllen to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.